this is Jennifer Stay from Coloring Pages Bliss, and this is Rose. Hi Rose! She's my little coloring companion, and we are here talking about coloring like a pro, and this is video number 3 in my series of 8. And in video number 1, in case you missed it, we talked about trying new coloring tools, and we discussed all different kinds of tools and trying to inspire you to try different kinds of tools, so you can check that video out. And in video number 2, we talked about choosing a palette and how to begin with a plan and limiting your colors, and we talked about the really neat color palettes that we have available on coloringpagesbliss.com, so go check that out. And we talked about always choosing light, medium, and dark, and building on your limited color palette as needed. So go check out that video. That was a really fun video. At the end we did a little coloring. Let me show you how that turned out. We did a little coloring in this cute mini coloring book that we have available on my website for free. Come download that. And this is the coloring we did with our limited coloring palette. It turned out really good. Did that with pencil crayons. So go see those videos if you haven't seen them yet. In videos number 3 through 7, we're going to cover 5 basic techniques that as a pro we need to practice. I think pros are always practicing these techniques and expanding on these techniques. I don't think we ever stop practicing. Professionals are always doing their chosen skill. They're doing it all the time. That's what makes them pros. And so these are just 5 techniques that I pulled out that we use all the time. The first 3 are pretty basic, and then 6 and 7 are probably the most talked about online in the different coloring chat groups. The shading and blending are the most talked about, but you know, today we're going to talk about strokes, and it may seem very basic, but it is very, very important. And you know, it's probably one of the very first things we learn in school is how to keep our strokes nice so that our coloring looks beautiful. So yes, it may be simple, but without this very basic technique, we do not look like pros. So we're going to talk about strokes very first here. So let's get to it. So basically, when we use our strokes, it's the way you move your coloring utensil across the page. So it doesn't really matter what coloring utensil you pick up. It's all about consistency. So no matter what coloring utensil you pick up, here I've picked up a Scholar Prismacolor pencil. We want to use slow, consistent strokes that all travel the same direction for a clean result. That's your general rule of thumb. In all art, of course, there are exceptions to every rule, as we're going to talk about here and here, but for the most part, you want to use slow, consistent strokes, all traveling the same direction, and because it gives you a clean result. Also, because I use coloring for stress relief and pain relief, doing this gives you a nice flow. It gives you a nice repetitive motion that puts you in sort of a blissful state, and it gives you good coverage and a good clean palette to work on and build on. So if you're doing any blending, or if you're trying to get a gradient pattern, if you use these nice consistent strokes, then you'll get better results right off the bat. So this is really important. Now, if you're moving into a wet media, say like a water-based marker, this becomes really important because you're going to get these overlap streaks, and if you don't do nice strokes, you get this chaos. Here's one where I crossed it off because you get this chaos, messy pattern. and because it's so wet, it's going to chew up and damage your paper. If you could drag your finger across my paper, you could feel how damaged this paper is, and this paper is a really thick, heavy paper that I used. It's a multimedia paper, and so it's already damaged this paper because of how wet this marker is. So the slow, consistent strokes is preventing damage to my paper and creating a nice clean result. Let me show you a coloring page I did where I used this to my advantage. This was all done with the Crayola Super Tip markers, these ones here. And I was really careful to do as consistent as possible. You can see here where I struggled keeping it consistent. I tried to use it as consistent as possible in the strokes, and I used this tip down here to create a feeling. I used the strokes in a direction. I wanted the eye of the person looking at the art to travel down to the middle, and so I had all the strokes traveling this direction. So with my slow, consistent strokes, I pointed the eye down and in, and then here I did the same thing with the strokes, pointing them down and in, and then on these braid parts, I used the strokes to kind of move the eye in a curving pattern to give these braids more of a curve feel. And you can totally see anytime I didn't follow those straight lines, you can see that. And so it's really important, these slow, consistent strokes. And when you drag your finger across the paper, you can also feel anytime I didn't follow those consistent strokes, because it does chew up that texture of the paper. Again, my coloring book is printed on really nice paper, and so if you were printing or using a coloring book that's being done on less than nice paper, you're going to have a problem. So the consistent strokes become even more important with wet media like this. So here's some wet media being done. This is an example of gel pen with the slow, consistent strokes. It actually has a really neat feel when you drag your finger across it. When you do your slow, consistent strokes like that, you have to do smaller areas with gel pens. Then you can push that gel around better. But the minute, especially with gel, with glitter and metallics, the minute you go a different direction, you're going to get a different effect. Let me show you. Go this way, and then I'm going to go this way, and then I'm going to go this way. Okay, now I'm not going slow because we don't want to sit here for an hour. But let me show you when this hits the light. This is a metallic, actually I think it's got glitter in it, but you're going to see what happens here. Because I didn't use the consistent direction, you can see the glitter catches the light different ways, and so you're not going to get a consistent look. So if you're using gel pens, these consistent strokes are really important as well. So your kindergarten teacher was right. Consistent strokes are important. And yes, this applies to good old-fashioned crayons as well. You got to have those nice consistent strokes. As soon as you start scribbling, then you can never go back. Okay, so down here we've talked about using strokes to create a feeling and move the eye of the viewer the direction you want. And here we're going to talk more about using different kinds of strokes, but here we talk a little bit about cross-hatching, which of course is using strokes that cross each other. And Again though, this is important to have consistency in your strokes because you get a nice consistent look. Again, we're looking for a professional look. That's kind of the point of this series, is how do professionals get the looks they get? And it's because they're going slow, they practice their techniques, and with their strokes they are being consistent and they're taking their time to get a consistent look across their whole piece. They don't rush through, and here you can kind of see where I rushed. I was doing really good and consistent, and then I probably was getting tired and I rushed through, and all of a sudden my lines aren't as consistent. And so if you want to look more professional with your coloring, you got to practice those strokes. Get them more consistent. Get those lines behaving the way you want them to, so that you can get a really nice finish at the end. The more you practice, the more consistent they'll be, and you won't even have to think about it anymore. You'll just pick up your pencil and away you go, and all of a sudden things will just be consistent. And it's when you'll hit strange areas in a piece that you'll have to slow down and really be careful to keep those strokes consistent. Isn't that interesting right here how this gel pen did that? We got clumps of ink coming out right there. That's a new thing that I haven't seen very often in gel pens. That's interesting. Anyway, this is video number 3 in my Color Like a Pro series. Stay tuned, we're going to hit video number 4 and talk about fun textures in our basic techniques. So let's color like a pro. And again, my name is Jennifer Stay for Coloring Pages Bliss, and I hope you have a colorful and wonderful day.